My name is Megan. Standing here on the balcony of my downtown apartment, breathing in the crisp fall air, I can hardly believe how far I've come. The city below buzzes with life and possibility, and I'm finally free to embrace it. It all started at a poolside restaurant in Hawaii. I was dressed in a navy dress that made me feel strong, and beside me was Lily, my sister-in-law, looking every bit the confident woman she'd always hidden. We just stepped out of the shadows, heels clicking on the polished wood deck, and into the sight of my husband, Ethan, and his mother, Victoria. There they were, sitting at a candle-lit table with a younger, polished woman. Ethan's eyes widened in horror as he saw me, and Victoria froze, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. I took a deep breath and said, "Good evening. I hope you're enjoying your little celebration." Ethan stammered, "Megan, whoa, what are you doing here?" But before I could answer, Lily stepped forward. She looked straight at Victoria and said coldly, "Hi, Mom." Victoria's face drained of color as she saw Lily standing, walking, and speaking. I pulled out my phone and played the recording Lily had made. Ethan and Victoria's cruel words rang out, every intention laid bare for everyone in the restaurant to hear. Ethan lunged forward, hissing, "Turn that off. You're making a scene." But I held his gaze and said, "You made the scene, Ethan. I'm just giving it a spotlight." It was a moment of reckoning, but how did I get here? I met Ethan when I was in my mid-20s at a business networking event. He was charming, with a successful career in finance. I was a budding graphic designer, working long hours for a small firm, barely making ends meet. But Ethan was different. He was stable, and in the beginning, he was so thoughtful that I thought I'd found my forever person. 6 months after we met, he proposed on a snowy rooftop in the city. Despite a small voice in my head telling me to slow down, I said yes. I was so eager to build a home and be part of a family. Ethan's family, the Andersons, seemed perfect from the outside. His mother, Victoria, was a high-powered businesswoman, always dressed to the nines and exuding an air of superiority. His father, Henry, was a quiet man who spent most of his time at work. And Lily, Ethan's younger sister, was diagnosed with a neurological disorder as a child. She couldn't speak or walk, or so we thought. After we got married, Ethan suggested I quit my job to focus on starting a family. He said I deserved a break, and part of me wanted that stability. So, I gave up my career and became a full-time wife. At first, it was like a dream. Lazy Sundays, weekend getaways, and the promise of a future together. But then cracks started to appear. Victoria had a knack for making me feel inadequate. Every visit to their mansion felt like an interrogation. She'd criticize my cooking, my choice of clothes, and even the way I decorated our home. "You're representing the Andersons now," she'd say, as if I were an outsider. Ethan, at first, would brush it off, saying it was just his mother's way. But as time went on, he changed. He started working late more often, and when he was home, he was always on his phone. Our conversations became shorter, and our dinners were filled with an uncomfortable silence. But there was Lily. She was my refuge. I'd visit her almost every day, and we'd sit in silence as she sketched. There was a silent understanding between us. I'd bring her tea, and she'd give me a shy smile. I felt like I could be myself around her. One day, Lily handed me a sketch of a woman alone in a storm. There was something about it that made my stomach turn. I looked at her, searching for answers, but she just smiled and pointed at her heart. Then, one rainy morning, Ethan sat me down in the kitchen. "My parents and I are going to Hawaii next week," he said, avoiding my eyes. "And what about me?" I asked, stunned. He hesitated and said they thought it'd be best if I stayed to look after Lily. Hawaii was a place we'd once dreamed of visiting together, but now I was being left behind. Victoria walked in, her smile tight and her eyes cold. "Ethan explained everything, didn't he?" "We're counting on you," she said, leaving no room for argument. I forced a smile and said I'd take good care of Lily. A few days later, I moved into their house. When I arrived, Lily was waiting by the window. She signed, "They left you again." It hit me hard. But then she signed. We have our own plans. They'll be surprised. The next morning, I brought Lily her tea. She stood up, and my world tilted.
She spoke. Megan, sit down.
There's something you need to know. I was in shock. She told me it was all an act. Victoria wasn't her real mother. Her father's first wife had died, and after his death, Victoria took over. She saw Lily as a burden and tried to get rid of her when she was sick. Lily realized that acting weak gave her more freedom. She showed me a folder full of documents, photos, and recordings of Ethan and Victoria plotting against me. She'd been planning this for years. And then she pulled out 2 plane tickets to Hawaii. We're going to show them they can't get away with this, she said. I was terrified but also filled with a spark of hope. We boarded the plane, and when we landed in Honolulu, I knew my life was about to change. After our confrontation in the restaurant, security asked Ethan and Victoria to leave. Lily and I sat at a corner table, breathing in the salty air. She raised her glass of sparkling water and said, "To freedom." I clinked my glass against hers, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Back home, with Lily's help, my lawyer built an airtight case. The court ruled in my favor, giving me a fair share of the marital assets and spousal support. I moved into this small downtown apartment and I found work as a freelance graphic designer. Lily enrolled in a graphic design program, and our bond grew stronger. We often met for coffee or walks in the park. One autumn morning, there was a knock at my door. It was Ethan and Victoria. They looked broken, their once proud figures now slumped. Ethan's voice cracked as he said, "Megan, we need your help." Victoria pleaded, "We were wrong about everything. We've lost everything." I took a deep breath and said calmly, "I'm sorry for your pain, but I won't lose myself again." They turned and walked away, and I closed the door, feeling at peace. This wasn't just an ending. It was the beginning of a life I'd finally chosen for myself.